The reality of the screen is bound to another purpose, acknowledged by no other than André Bazin, is in contradiction to his championed aesthetic of realism. Bazin champions a perfect aesthetic illusion of reality, a cinema so real to not much in how realistic it looks, but in its inherent and organic integrity with event. A cinema that is no longer cinema, with no more actors, no more story, no more sets. By this logic, the screen itself should no more actors, no more story, no more sets. By this logic, the screen itself should cease to exist in the complete racing of this reality coefficient. Yet, in this thinking, what then should be then will be the point? What then will be the point of cinema? The aesthetic of realism contains an inherent fantasy, which is that art that should be separate from life, and therefore necessitates a certain amount of artifice. A fundamental contradiction between reality and cinema is necessary, because art can only exist and when such a choice between what is worth preserving and what should be discredited is made. Without it, supposing total cinema was here and now technically possible, we should go back purely to reality. In other words, the virtual windows, the delimitation of the screen, is more than a frame for another reality. It's defined. It is the dialectic upon which our realities, physical and virtual experience and representation, life and art exist. The boundaries of the screen are thus concrete. In that sense, they are the basis of demarcating a space for art and for another world. Digital video. See my clean hands. The advent of digital video heralds a nascent diffusion of these screen boundaries. The portability of digital video on cameras and mobile phones not only brings an explosion of images, but also a proliferation of screens. This is already part of a long trend of precedent and establishes by technologies such as videotape, smaller film stock, and early lightweight cameras. The later stated impact being arguably most visible, seeing it in the novel vague films of the 50s and 60s. And these technologies lowered costs and increased access to film production and exhibition, if not yet circulation. Moving images were made on a broader scale and exhibited in a wider range of forums such as classrooms and home theaters. With digital technologies, the mobile screen comes to the fore, as images are produced in every conceivable situations, from holidays to revolutions to at arm length self-portrait sessions. The last, also known as the selfie, a visual phenomenon to ubiquitous the world itself in one of the Time magazine's top 10 buzzwords of the 2012. Alongside recent variations such as the shelfie, at arm's length photograph producers of one book's collections, events are regularly almost obsessively recorded, viewed, annotated, stored, uploaded, or otherwise shared as image representations of screens in real time. In this profusion of images, both producers and received digital video arguably bring to fruition Heidegger's assertion that the fundamental event of the modern age is the conquest of the world as picture. In turn, this intensified engagement with the on-screen photographs or videos, as opposed to its reference, produces a certain thickened reality for the event, whereby it is experienced physically as well as saw the abundance of images recorded and shared usually among instantaneously due to the ubiquity of cameras, connectivity and social media. Visuality via the mobile screen thus not only becomes a representation of the event, but part of the event itself. Images taken of the Arab Spring revolutions, for instance, were continued of its very reality, as Lina Kadib writes. Photographic images, whether through cameras or video, brought the Arab Spring closer to an audience within and outside the immediate locales of the protest, acting as a means of making real, or more real, matters that privileged and the mere safe might prefer to ignore. In this, the media were not mere reflectors of change, and they are also themselves mediators and part creators of social change. With the abundance of digital images generated from portable digital videos, as well as their proximity to events in time and place, an intense engagement arises with respect to screen representations. Images are not produced and shared, but add a thickening to event itself, a screen reality which heralds additional engagement with the event visuality. In this profusion of digitally produced, exhibited and circulated images, the screen reveals its porosity. The image, as part of the thickened event, fills the screen to the operator's own reality of space and time. The screen is no longer a demarcation of a separate story world and reality. It is reality. In this case, the spectatorship of images is not an eternal viewing through the construct of a window of a layering, as discussed above. It is a partaking of the image world story. As such, the screen does not so much enclose or separate as it blends into or fuses the realities of the image and the spectator. Cinema, of course, has always been conscious of its screen boundaries. The implicit transgression of the forelook, as discussed above, reveals this awareness. However, there is a conceptual leap from the implicit acknowledgement of the screen boundaries to the specific affirmation which marks the porosity of the screen, which is attendant fluidities of realities. I suggest that such mainstream affirmation was first made in the Blair Witch Project and echoed in subsequent films such as Cloverfield and Redacted. In the Blair Witch Project, characters in the film hold portable digital cameras and record themselves as well as events around them, supposedly unmediated, unedited, and unprocessed. The resulting footage of video and sound is presents to the audience as a film. The term film here is ambiguous on a number of levels, not least of all due to project fictional basis. In that sense, the boundaries of the frame persist for it. The film there remains an element of artifice, if anything, simply in terms of how the action is framed. What has been chosen to be included in the frame, and that has been chosen to be discarded. To the extent the screen persists as a virtual window separating reality and diegesis. However, on another level, the screen is not a demarcation of boundaries because it is the reality of the image world. It is self-continuous part of the diegesis. The characters address the audience directly rather than in transgression. In an early scene in Blair Witch, Waiter faces the camera while introducing the room, opening her arms wide and explicitly addressing the audience. In Cloverfield, the characters holding the camera climbs onto the roof of a building, addressing the camera directly as he does so. Alright, if this is the last thing you see, that means I died. The direct address in voice that and gesture are not breaches of a demarcated film world, but an explicit and deliberate reaching out into the spectator's world and a drawing of the spectator into the film world. These words are meant for them. The spectator is not looking out of the screen as a structure framing another film world. Rather, the screen is simultaneously part of both worlds and conduit through which both worlds fluently communicate. This is also the difference with interactive films such as those made by Chris Hales, which allow actions from the spectator to affect the film. In that sense, the frame of the screen remains a bordered demarcation of to be breached. In contrast, the screen frame in films such as Blair Witch is porous, and in that allows the realities of the film. With Josh and Mike in the Black Hills, and of the spectator who are watching with Josh and Mike in the Black Hills, to seep through into each other's worlds. In the process, the audience co-opted into the narrative, partaking so to speak in the film event, so simply as a spectator but as an actual participation in its thickened reality borged by its profuse visuality. One of the clearest and boldest indications of this thickened reality of the film's event is the scene in Blair Witch where Heather, having inadvertently touches a bloody shirt, frantically washes her hands in the river and tries to reassure herself that her hands are clean. She holds them up to the camera and says, See, they are clean." Her appeals to the camera is significant in two ways. The first is that it is an acknowledgement of the camera's agency in terms of a new visual relationship between Heather and the camera. By forcing the camera to register her cleansed hand, she is calling for it to provide for her own eyes in manner of seeing, an independent eye without engagement, participation of assumption, and to implicate the agency of the camera's cold eye to affirm her watch's hand. The second related significance of Waiter appeal is how she uses the camera and thereby produces images on the screen. As a supporting reality, the images affirm or deny her reality. They are a continuance of her experienced ordeal, the reality through which she sees are clean hands. Video mapping, going beyond joy sense. If digital video diffuses the boundaries of the screen, in comparison, video mapping displaces the screen altogether. The technology of video mapping, also known as 3D projection mapping, turns irregularly shaped three-dimensional objects into two-dimensional display surfaces. It achieves this by first spatially mapping a virtual replica of the object, creating a virtual model of the projection surface in the computer, by using opacity templates to mask the exact shapes and positions of the different elements of the object. The projected light is thus able to form an integral part of the display space, and in this way turn any object in a room into a surface for line projection. This technique has been used to project light onto three-dimensional objects such as a vase on a table, but more spectacular usage thus far has been to map large building surfaces for use in late-night displays such as the Fête des Lumières in Lyon, publicity events such as the launch of the Nokia Lumia 800 with Windows Phone, or in concerts such as the Roger Waters' The Wall tour in 2011. Video mapping display was used to great fanfare for the New Year countdown into 2012 in Shanghai, with a light display projected to two historical buildings, the Custom House and the SPD Bank building, along the Bund, and a different light display being put up for each New Year countdown since then. Video mapping is not only projected outdoors. Microsoft is developing a proof of concept system which they have called the Illumi Room, that augment the area surrounding the television with projected visualization to enhance traditional gaming experiences. A self-calibrating system, Illumi Room does not use flat white projection screens, but instead adapts the projection to the existing viewing environment by using video mapping to project onto the surfaces of the user's living room. The result is to change the appearance of the room, induce apparent motion, extend the field of the view, and enable entirely new physical gaming experiences. Video mapping effectively displaces the screen. No longer demarcate, the image is now co-opted as an element of our physical realities. It is part of our archshare, part of the building in front of us. The image is thus not contained with a frame. It has burst through a passage. If the screen displaying digital video fuses the image world with the real, video mappings coalesces the screen itself into the physical world. Image is no longer demarcated, but is instead part of the physically out of our world. This is neither window nor frame, but a three-dimensional structure via which images simultaneously connote both flat surface and physical mass. With the image no longer contained within a frame, make this be the fruition of basic fantasy or no more cinema? I suggest two answers. The first is that it's not so much a case of no more cinema, but of simply more cinema. Basing's fantasy for no more cinema stems from an ontological desire to see a reality, to clarify through the windows of the screen surrounding cinema, that we should be able to get at some kernel of truth of ourselves and of our world from it. In this case, with the image of the buildings physically, Basin's fantasy for no more cinema stems from an ontological desire to see a reality so clarified through the windows of the screen cinema that we should be able to get some kernel of truth of ourselves and of our world from it. In this case, with the image of the building physically fuses to it referent, the abandonment of the frame to the image of precisely to project images with more reality than ever. How much more realistic can the image be if not to be mapped specifically to every contour, nook and cranny of its surface? If we have done away with the screen, it is not for more reality, but for more cinema and for more spectacle. The second answer there then is to invert that relationship. Video mapping is not about the object being the basis of the image for more true, but about the image being the basis of the object for less. The manipulation of the digital image today has tended to follow basic aspirations for an aesthetic of realism, to create a graphic so real that it is indistinguishable from reality. Yet, in projectional mapping, I suggest that it is the converse. Instead, the three-dimensional object is manipulated precisely to create a graphic so real that it is completely distinguishable from reality. This is the appeal of collapsing structures and flying object characteristics of video mapping, where the spectacle lies in moving the immovable, in collapsing a rigid structure or in floating up erect columns. On one level, of course, this building surface still operates as a screen. Images are projected onto them as they would be on any surface, and the outlines of the building frames the image similar to that of a screen. The Nokia Lumia light projection, for example, will serve as such an example, presenting itself explicitly as a screen in terms of how the regular rectangular surface of the Milbank Tower echoes a mobile phone display, as is most likely the logic behind Nike's choice of the building. A similar sentiment can be seen in the New York Times article on projection mapping self-explanatory headline, "When skyscrapers are your screen."